Hey everyone, it's Patty from Art Out of Anything, and today we continue our Halloween art history series with Andy Warhol. And I'm sure you're familiar with Andy Warhol. He did silk screens of Campbell's soup cans and Elvis Presley and lots of other things that you see and you use in everyday life. And that was part of the pop art movement. Here we have an example of one of his very famous silk screens of Marilyn Monroe. And Andy Warhol um, created an art studio that was actually called The Factory, where he mass produced this artwork by using a silkscreen technique. And most of the prints he didn't even do himself. He had assistants and other people that worked for him that did it for him because he said that he wanted to be like a machine and create multiples of his work and everything that he did. So apart from doing that, he also, when he did his silk screens, he used really interesting choice of color. And there's a lot of theory and explanation in art history about his use of color, which I will give you some links to that at artoutofanything.com and on my YouTube page. My YouTube channel, so that you can follow up and learn more about that. But as you can see, the silkscreen technique that he used gave him a really interesting image to work with. And then his choice of colors was also super interesting. In some cases, it was very glamorous. In some cases, it was kind of not even in focus, which is what he wanted also, because he wanted to give it that manufactured feeling and not like it had any emotion or that it was done by a person, pretty much. So in terms of color, let's look at some elements of art, and color is one of those. And there are lots of different, there's not just one color wheel, by the way. There's lots of different color wheels, and Andy Warhol actually used a very specific, or he was influenced by a very specific color wheel, art historian color wheel that he used and that he liked. But as you can see, there's all different colors: primary colors, secondary, tertiary, warm colors, cool colors, analogous colors, monochromatic colors, complementary colors. So all different colors of the spectrum that you can use in ways to mix them together, to use them side by side to get the desired result that you want. So when I was doing this with my classes, I usually would ask them to choose a palette, to choose colors that they would like to use for their Warhol Witches, which is what we're doing today. And let me just show you one that I already finished. Here we go. And these are my Warhol Witches. And what I did was I just printed out pictures that I found online, royalty-free line drawings of witch faces, and I put them in a collage and I print on my phone with my Canva. You can do it at canva.com. You can just do it with your layout on your phone or on your printer. And I made a collage of the four faces that I wanted. And then I chose my palette to color. And I used crayon because pop art, especially Andy Warhol, used a lot of really super bright colors that were flat. So there's like really no shades or no shading or no three-dimensional aspect to it. It's all kind of flat. And that was one of the trademarks of pop art. So you can see the colors I used were all shades of green and red. And so you see some purple, you see some different shades of green, you see pinks, you see orange, because those are all colors that contain red and blue. And I used my 96 big box of crayons because in here you can get colors like red violet and violet red and rainforest green and all different shades of the same primary and secondary colors. All right, so another way of doing this is to make 4 copies of your witch, and this one is kind of a scary witch, which I sort of like, but sometimes they might, kids might not like a scary witch. They might like a fun witch. So this was actually a blank face that I also got by just Googling witch face line drawing or witch face coloring book. And it's a royalty-free image. And all I do is I drew a little face on it myself. So your students can do that too. And what you can do with this is you can make 4 copies of this, and then they can piece them all together to make one large Andy Warhol inspired piece, or they can just do one at a time. It's up to them. So, for example, I'm just going to show you quickly. I chose my palette for these, and I chose all complementary colors. So I chose orange and blue, yellow and purple, red and green. It was very hard to find just red and green in that big box of colors. I also have some Sharpies because I know that if there are any teachers watching, which I hope there are, you know that most kids really don't like coloring these big, huge spaces with crayons. And it does take a lot of work and it is tiring. So if you're using markers, it's a little easier. And it's also easier for like smaller areas too. So this also is amazing. This is a big highlighter. And I think I got this at Michael's or Staples, one or the other. But it's fantastic because, again, it covers large areas. And I like to use highlighters a lot because they give you that beautiful, it's a translucent color that you can use for different things. But in this particular, it'll give us a nice flat color, which is really cool. So the hardest part about this that I found when I was doing it with my classes is having kids understand that lips don't have to always be red, right? And eyes don't have to always be brown or blue or green. They can be whatever color you want them to be, especially in an Andy Warhol painting, right? Or silkscreen. So I would start by just having them decide how they were going to use their color. Maybe take some inspiration from the Marilyn Monroe silkscreens that he did, adding some eyeshadow, some color to the eyes, some color to the lips. When you do the face, again, you can choose a color that is not necessarily one that you would think about when you're thinking about the color of a face, right? Because that was the whole idea of turning this portrait into something different, okay? So again, this is a really great activity for thinking about color theory, thinking outside the box. You can even relate this to the fauve artists like Vincent van Gogh, where he made purple grass and, you know, orange skies, etc., and thinking out of the box. And this might be a little difficult for some kids. It was always easy. They usually made one face that was kind of normal. They might make the face green because they were thinking of, you know, a cartoon witch or something like that. But once they got past that first one and tried to combine the colors in a different way, that's where some of them kind of got stuck. So it's really a nice activity, again, to have them explore all these different ideas of how to use color and where to use color, right? And we're going to make some orange hair. And I think you're getting the gist of this, right? So you can make this as simple or as complicated as you like. You can add as many different rules to it as you want. You can limit the number of colors that you use. You can even do a monochromatic using only tints, shade, and tone with black and white, which would be really interesting. So the whole idea is that you begin to think about color and in a different way. And here's our fantastic purple, and I'm going to make her hat purple. And as you can see, like I said, this is amazing because it covers so much area in a really short span of time, very quickly. And I know they're going to love that because, like I said, your hand does get tired coloring a large space after a while. You might want to tell them to, to color in circles, so it's not as tiring, and you can actually fill in a lot more space that way also. So that's always something to remind them, because most kids will just go like this, right? But whoops, and go outside the line, which is fine. But if you tell them, well, you get, especially in those little tight spaces, if you start doing it in a circle, That helps you control the color a little bit, and it also helps you cover more area. Okay, so there we go. So here we have a start of our Andy Warhol witch. And like I said, you can make 4 of these and then piece them together, tape them together so that you have a nice big version of this art project. And of course you would continue with your yellow on the back. So that's our Andy Warhol Witches. And I will have more information on this and more resources and links for you to find out more about color theory and about Andy Warhol and his work at artoutofanything.com. This video will be up, obviously, at Art Out of Anything on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and at Sea of Visibility, too, on Facebook. Thanks for watching. Have a happy, happy Halloween.